Hello and good afternoon, and welcome to Speaking the Truth About Money with Martin Cowart and Joy, the Wise Woman. You are speaking and seeing both right now. So I'm going solo. This live broadcast and podcast is to change the way we think and relate to money from all those negative beliefs all of us have formulated growing up in our culture, or even not in our culture. The number one cause of worry is people worry about money. And do you know what worry is? Someone told me that I thought this was brilliant. Worrying is praying for a bad outcome. It's praying for the conflict to continue, because you're just churning and churning and churning around in your little head the problem, the information that it knows, in order to keep itself occupied. It has no interest in solving the problem. So today I'm going to go solo, and I'm going to teach you 3 steps, if you will. 3 very simple steps that are based on the same spiritual principles of 12-step recovery programs. Because I'll tell you something. If you're struggling with anything like money or drug addiction, or like me, my obsession with money, it comes down, people don't believe this, but I have never been wrong about this, and it is a spiritual truth. Everything I know about shadow work. But if you're struggling with money, it always comes down to the very same core issue: a sense of worthiness. It is a worthiness issue. It is a self-worthiness issue. And I'm going to show you these steps to show you why it's a self-worthiness issue. And the good news about that it's a self-worth issue is you can change that. You have the power. We all have the power within us to change our minds and our feelings and our perceptions of ourselves. Because I'll tell you something. If it's a worthiness issue, then it's a lie. It is part of the false beliefs. It is the lie of the shadow. You see, we have 2 personalities. We have 2 parts of ourselves. We have the truth, the light within us, the spark of life that's just the love, creative energy of the world. But we also have the shadow. And the shadow is the part of us that really, we need that shadow to reflect off of us to keep us moving forward. But if we believe the shadow's lies, if we believe that to be true, which we often do. I mean, I spent most of my life believing the shadow's lie that I wasn't worthy of money and success because I was not good enough. And then when you add the fact that I'm a gay man on there, that even sort of supersizes that sense of unworthiness. So I'm speaking a lot to my audience, which is gay, bi, and transgender men, to tell you that most people in our world have a sense when it comes down to some type of worry, some type of problem, is we associate our worth in the world with our net worth. And we think, we have a belief that if we get this much money, if we had this much money, then we'll be good enough. And then we'll be worthy of having a good life. The problem with that whole idea is, if you're in that mindset, the scarcity mindset, there's never going to be enough. Because I used to have clients that had more money, they couldn't spend it in 10 lifetimes. And I could show them financial plans that would show them they could have money to leave their great-grandchildren. But if in their mind, they didn't believe something about themselves, if they had some sense of lack of self-worth that's going on, running a show, that conflict inside them, I don't care what I showed them, it was never going to be enough. And on the other hand, I have had, and I still do have clients that they don't have a whole lot of money. Money's not, they don't even think about money. They know they're artists, they have all they need, and they know they're worthy of a good life because that's how they think. They think with an abundance mindset. They create from an abundance mindset. So we're going to go through the 3 steps to solve any problem. And it comes out of my workbook called the Heart Space Method for Problem Solving. And the 3 steps are this. The first one is you have got to take responsibility for creating the problem. If you got a problem with something, you created it. You got to get really clear. It's hard sometimes. If you're like for me, when my business was failing, I wanted to blame my team. I wanted to blame my clients. I wanted to blame the company I worked for. I wanted to blame everybody. But you know what? I'm the one that created the problem. And I had to get to the place where I was like ready to accept responsibility for really creating the problem. Now I have the power to solve it. So just understand that. The first step to solving any problem, whether it's financial or otherwise, is you have to take full responsibility for solving the problem, for creating the problem in the first place. Now you're about 85% toward the solution, okay? Because now you've taken responsibility for it, you can do something about it. So what do you do? Well, the next step is to get really clear about what the problem is. We often get confused between the symptoms that the problems are causing and the root cause of the problem. Okay? So you've got to to help us get there, you've got to get really, really clear about what the problem is. And you do that first by just listing the facts. What are the facts that exist around the situation causing the problems? Avoid any judgments or opinions about other people, places, and things. Just what are the facts? And state them and list them. Then go in and list all of your judgments and opinions about those facts. This is when you get to really let go. They're a jerk. They're stupid. I have a bad staff. They didn't show up on time. They don't care about whatever it is. And I want to encourage you to always tell the story as boldly as you can from the place of the victim. You know, this is not time to be nice. This is a time where you say, Charlie was a mean jerk, or whatever it is you want to say. You want to get really clear. You make up the story about the facts that's creating the problem. You get to do this and get it out on paper. Get really clear about it. You know, really come from your victim. Then the next stage is, how does this make you feel? How does it make you feel that your friend Susie stood you up and didn't show up, the jerk, for lunch yesterday and didn't call and tell you? You know, you made up a story that she doesn't care about you, that no one cares about you, and she could have been in a car accident. You don't know, but you've made up a story that made you feel bad. And I'm going to tell you something. If you got a problem, your emotions are going to be on the negative side, or otherwise it wouldn't be a problem. So you want to get really clear and just feel your emotions and write them all out. This problem that I created is making me feel like shame. It's making me feel guilty. It's making me feel angry. So you want to get really clear about the emotions. So what we're doing is we're creating the drama. We're really getting clear in our mind's eye, in our head, about who the players are in this drama and what caused the problem and all those kinds of things, okay? So we go to our emotions. And then we want to go into it and say, well, if you take away all the emotions and all the story, what you got left? What is what's underneath all this? What's causing all of this to happen? You know, is it Susie who didn't show up for lunch? Or is there something in me that's causing the problem? I promise you, it's something in you. It always is. Every single conflict in the world we have first starts within us. So the way you solve a problem is you solve the conflict inside ourselves. then the outside problem will resolve itself. Okay? Follow me so far? So this is we're getting, first you have to own the problem, and then you get really clear about what the problem is. How did it make you feel? What are the stories? What are the judgments you're making? And then what's the impact on you? How is this problem? Maybe you don't trust yourself. Get really clear about the impact this problem you created is having on your life, especially on your relationships. Maybe you got a problem with your husband or your spouse, and so you say, I got this problem, and you want to blame them for the problem. Of course you do, because it's not you didn't create the problem; they created it. It's their fault. But when you get really clear about what the problem is, then you can start taking some ownership for it. You can start saying, okay, well, what's the impact on this problem that I created on me? Then you make a list of all the things, write this down. You make a list of all the things of the perceived impact this problem has on other people, especially their relationship with you. You might say, because of this problem that I created, people don't trust me. Okay, that's pretty clear. The impact on me is, and you don't know they don't trust you or not, because you don't know what's in their head. But the perception you have of why this is a problem is that this problem is creating the perception, I have the perception that this person doesn't trust me as much as they could. That could be true, may not be true. You don't know what the impact on this problem is on anybody but yourself. But you should be able to figure out what it might be, okay? What is the perception of it? So now that you've got all of that, the final step around the problem itself is you want to go down to the root cause. And the root cause is always one of our shadow's beliefs. The shadow has a belief. It's a belief about us of not being worthy in some form. I have a list in my workbook of about 10 different shadow beliefs that maybe will resonate with you. And you can get a copy of the workbook inside of our Facebook groups, either the Financial Mystic Sanctuary or Financial Heart Space for gay, transgender, and bisexual men. There is this wonderful workbook that you're welcome to go and download. It's a PDF file, and it's free to anybody that like it. But all of this is laid out for you right there. But in that workbook, I give you a list of like different beliefs we have about ourselves that the shadow comes up with. But I will tell you this, every single one of them is something to do with not being good enough. It is a worthiness issue. The shadow believes it's always looking to validify its lie. It's looking for opportunities to say, I told you so. I told you weren't smart enough. I told you weren't good enough. I told you didn't have enough money. You didn't have enough, whatever. It's always a worthiness issue run by the scarcity mindset, which says it's some version of not enough. Unless it's something like your looks, or maybe I'm just, whatever it is, you're not living up to what your mind thinks is normal in some way, or what everybody else has. Okay. So that's the shadow's belief. And that's what I mean about a worthiness issue, because the thing about the shadow's belief, it's not true. It's the shadow of the light. The truth is you are worthy. You are lovable. You are powerful. You are a genius. You're a miracle. There's a spark of life in you that can create anything your heart desires if you just open it up and let go of these false beliefs. And the way of letting go is through surrendering. You may not realize it, but I'm in recovery for alcohol. I've been in recovery for almost 9 years. And when you go into recovery, you think it's an alcohol problem. It's not an alcohol problem. Alcohol is not a problem. Alcohol is just alcohol. The problem for me is that to feel good about myself, to feel like I was worthy, like I was smart, I artificially would drink, and all of a sudden all my problems would dissolve, and I feel great about myself. I think I was funny and all kinds. I was actually a big narcissistic bore. But the reality, from my mind's eye, I was the life of the party. And all of a sudden, as an introvert, became this extroverted idiot, really, if you want to think about it. But the truth of the matter is, at the time, I didn't think that way. But I created that problem. It wasn't alcohol. I created the problem out of my narcissistic need to be liked. That's what it all comes down to. It's our narcissistic need to be loved. And we don't think we're loved, but we are loved. We can't not be loved because that's what we are. But the shadow doesn't see it that way. But we need that so we can keep reflecting off of it and we can keep coming back to it. Okay? Because when I go into resistance or fear, I say, oh, I got to drop that. I got to let that go. I got to surrender it. And so there's a wonderful little prayer in my notebook. It's called the surrendering prayer. And the surrendering prayer goes something like this. This is exactly what I did when I was at the edge of bankruptcy in the dark night of the soul. I'm going to tell you, I did exactly what I'm going to tell you right now. I'm going to tell you, I'll quickly tell you the story. So I'm on my sofa having a huge pity party for myself. We had elected Trump as the president of the United States, which took me from being a top producer to the bottom of the barrel, and I was barely hanging on. I couldn't get a client to save my life. I was so full of fear and feelings of self-worth and imposter syndrome that I really drove my business into the ground. And I was having a pity party one day, and I was at home feeling all sorry for myself like we do when we have pity parties. My spiritual teacher got a hold of me, and she listened to what I had to say for a little while. And she said, well, Martin, you could go bankrupt, because the lawyer said you could go bankrupt and you'd be a good candidate because you really turn yourself upside down. I mean, there's a reality here going on. You're not making enough money to pay your bills, and you're eating away at everything you got. So you might as well, you can pay bankrupt and put an end to this. That's an external solution to an internal problem. It wouldn't solve the problem. It might give me some relief, but it's not going to solve the problem. So my spiritual teacher, which I got to see on my birthday this week, she's wonderful. Her name is Teresa. She said to me, but I'm going to suggest something to you that's going to work. And she's like, you're going to surrender that to God. You're going to surrender it to God. And I knew what she was talking about because I had surrendered my alcohol problem to God about 6 years earlier at that time. But this was the big one for me because I was obsessed with money. I had such an obsession with money, and I kept that close to. Martin was going to control that. My little narcissistic Martin was going to do, and boy, did I make a mess of myself. And she said, you got to get on your hands and knees, and you got to surrender it to God. And that's exactly what this surrendering prayer is. And I got on my hands and said, God, I have created this huge problem for myself. Nobody else created it. My firm didn't create it. My boss didn't create it. My clients didn't. I created it. I took full responsibility. I said, God, I've created this huge mess. I am on the edge of bankruptcy. I can't get people to work with me. I don't want to work with me. I'm too miserable, And I don't know how to solve it. I don't know how to solve this problem. It's beyond me. It's beyond and the more I try to fix it, the worse it gets. So that's my prayer. I said, I'm here. I can't solve. I need your help. And I knew I've had a good relationship with the divine for a while. I've been a meditator for 40 years, and I got a lot of lift when I went through recovery years earlier than that. And I got even a deeper, but this was the big one. This was when I was really going to have to surrender and be vulnerable and trust in a higher power to help me solve my problem. And so then you say, well, because you tell guys, well, yeah, here's the problem. And it really makes me feel so much shame. I feel so much guilt. I feel so bad about myself all the time. How in the world am I ever going to get into people say you got to feel, I say, I feel terrible all the time. I feel miserable. So I was honest about that. And then I said, the final part is, and then you acknowledge, but I now realize, because I do shadow work, I now realize through the help of my coach and some others that the cause of this problem is my shadow's belief that I'm not good enough. That's it. The cause of this problem, the root cause of this problem, I now know, it's part of my prayer, is this lie I make up, this belief I have about myself, the shadow's belief that I am somehow not good enough. I am not worthy of love. I'm not worthy of prosperity. I'm not worthy of abundance. It's a big lie. But when you're living in it, it feels so real. That's why you have to go on your hands and knees and just at that place of agony and just surrender it to God. And then I say, you know, God, I'm here because I have had a relationship with you and I know that you love me. I know you love me and I love you and I love my life. And I just want your help. I know you love me and I know that you're going to solve this problem for me. And because when I solve it, I am going to feel joy. And then you name the positive feeling you're going to have once you have surrendered this to God and God has solved it. And the problem is the joy you're going to feel when you realize just how powerful, loving, and worthy you truly are. And once you know how powerful and loving you truly are, that you can create anything your heart desires, the problem resolves itself. Now, it doesn't happen as quickly as I'm telling it to you in this broadcast because it takes a little while. But the next step is once you've said this prayer, and you can find there's a script for it, a template for it in the workbook, which you can find inside our Facebook groups. Either one, the Financial Heart Space for gay, transgender, and bisexual men, or the Financial Mystic Sanctuary, which is for everybody. You'll find a copy of my workbook, and you're welcome to download a copy and put it to practice. Matter of fact, if you want to, you'll call me. I'll walk you through it. But that's just it. And then once you do that, this is what you do. You get still and you shut up and you listen. You offer it. Your mind's going to want to say, well, maybe you should. Don't do any of that. Say your prayer, surrender it to God, get still and listen and breathe and just keep letting it go. Every time a thought comes up about this and that, I don't know, let it go. Every time an idea, I don't know, let it go. It's not going to come to you with like, I think you should go do this, Martin. Although I've been doing it so long, I often do get that today because I'm so familiar with Joy the Wise Woman, because this is who Joy the Wise Woman is. This is when I discovered Joy the Wise Woman, by the way, was I realized she's the one that solved my problems. And now she guides me through life. This divine presence within me that I call a Joy the Wise Woman. You got a Joy the Wise Woman too. Maybe it's a Jim the Wise Man or the King, whatever you want to call that divine presence. You've got one. Everybody's got one. And that's the part of you, that heart space that knows everything. There's no problem it can't solve, is what you got to tap into. And this 3-step process is exactly what you can do to solve any problem that you're struggling with. Again, Einstein says you cannot, even Einstein knew, this brilliant man that he was, and he said you cannot solve a problem with the same thinking that we use to create the problem, which means we cannot solve the problem with our binary ego thinking mind that's just basically a storage system. It doesn't have solutions. It's incapable by itself of making solutions. That's why we got to travel into and surrender all that nonsense to a higher level of consciousness within ourselves. I call it heart space. Jesus called it the kingdom of heaven. I think today Joe Dispenza calls it the quantum field. That's even gotten more exciting. We call it the quantum field, which is where you realize there's no binary. Everything is on a spectrum on a spectrum of light energy, really. So at one end there's fear, there's the dark shadow end that's fear. Then there's when you go through the fear, there's nothing but light, because that's all there is, light energy. But as human beings, we need the shadow parts of ourselves, the contrast, in order to navigate through life. And that's what challenges are for. That's what problems are for. problems are put here for us to as opportunities, really, to expand the soul and to grow. And it takes a lot of fear that way to let go of them and not have them. But that's the way to solve a problem right there. And Martin Cowart's interpretation of that is trying to solve a financial problem or any kind of problem, as far as that matters, with the ego thinking binary brain is like trying to play a violin with a chainsaw. It's not that the chainsaw is bad. It's just that the chainsaw was designed to cut and separate, not make music. It's the same way with our binary thinking mind. It's designed to help us navigate through life. It's designed, it actually creates the problems. I don't know. I can't probably prove this, but it's my understanding and my belief is that the soul presents problems for us and challenges at a level for us to continue to expand and grow. So, and we often get stuck there. I mean, I was stuck on some of these problems for a long time. So if you're stuck on a problem, I would suggest that you follow these 3 steps. Go to my Facebook group, Financial Heart Space for Gay, Transgender, and Bisexual Men, or the Financial Mystic Sanctuary, and get yourself a copy of my workbook. It's free. And take yourself through the steps. And if you want to listen to this podcast and go through the steps slowly, and I think what I'm teaching you will make more sense when you can see it down on a piece of paper in a workbook, and just follow the workbook. And if you're having some trouble, send me a direct message on Facebook, and I'll see if I can help you. Because that's what I do. That's the whole. It's a mindset. It's the whole thing. That is abundance thinking, an abundance mindset shift in a nutshell, right there. It all comes down to our thinking, how we think and relate to money. We have this negative relationship with ourselves and our money. Money is just money. It's just an energy. But we can transform our own sense of worthiness, then we can realize there's an abundance of money and other resources to support our mission to make the world better for other people. So I hope today that you were able, those of you who are listening or watching the live broadcast or eventually the podcast that comes out, that these 3 steps on how to solve a problem will be of some use to you, because it works. I promise you, it will work every single time if you do it. And the thing is once you let it go to God, once you surrender it, let it go and just listen. Just listen. And you're going to be amazed at what might come up. A solution. But it won't be like you expect it to be, but a solution will emerge. So that's what I got for you today. It's been fun coming on here for a change solo. I usually have guests, but today I thought I would come on. My birthday was this week, and I had a guest yesterday come on here for a special birthday event, and that was a lot of fun. And we made a lot of magic. And so for now, may love and prosperity prevail. Thank you for tuning in.